Chapter 3 of your textbook deals with two new features of programming, variables and functions. The first exercise will be focusing on variables. So start a new world in Alice. First thing, make sure that you are in Java style and color. So click Edit, Preferences, and check the program style. If it says Alice style, you want to change that to Java style and color, which generally requires rebooting the Alice program. Way to check and see if you're already in Java style is to click on World and then Functions. If you see that exclamation mark there instead of the word not, then you're in Java style. And I just urge you to do that so that your screen will capture what you see on this video and what you see in the textbook. So the first exercise we're going to be doing is called Horse, and like I said, is going to deal with variables. A variable is a little place in memory that you give a name and it stores a value that you can retrieve and use later on and change. And it makes creating methods easier, makes them more flexible. There's three different types of variables we'll be dealing with. The first is the method variable that is used within a single method and gives you extra functionality. The second kind is a parameter, also work with methods. They are used more broadly. They let you send values that you've stored along with a method when you call it. And then the third kind is object variables or property variables, and those are created on the Property tab in Alice. So let's start out. Our story has us have a native girl on the left, a horse on the right, and we want the native girl to move towards the horse. And we're going to use a variable in order to make this happen. All of these things are going to happen in a method, world method called playScene2. So let's start by creating that new world method. Select world and then create new method. And again, it's called playScene2. And you see you get the new tab on the right and a new tile on the left that can be drug over and used. All right, these two buttons are on the right side of every method tab. You've got create new parameter, which as I said is a type of variable we'll be using later, and create new variable. That lets you create a method variable. And that's what we're going to be using in this exercise. So let's add our objects to the world first. Click the Add Objects button. And you want native girl and a horse. You can find native girl in the Old West folder and drag her to the left side of the stage in the world. Use the turn objects left and right tool to rotate her so she can face the horse. And then we want to add a horse on the other side of the screen. For some reason there are no horses in Old West. So we're going to go back to the local gallery and we can find one in Medieval folder. So we're going to drag the horse to the right side and rotate him so he is facing the girl. In 3D space, it's sometimes difficult to tell if they actually are face to face, if they're lined up directly. So to check that, we're going to switch to quad view in the Add Objects window. And then using the hand tool and the magnifying glass at the bottom, we can make sure that we are viewing our objects from directly above. We said the hand tool lets you move the location of what you're viewing from above. Magnifying glass lets you zoom in and zoom out. As you can see from above, my girl and horse are actually very far apart. So I'm going to use the arrow or the Move Objects Freely tool to place them so they are face to face. And check your work in the single view to make sure that it still looks right and both of your objects are still visible on the stage. But this from the top view, if you switch to quad view, lets you make sure you've lined up the objects properly. Once they are lined up, click Done. And the way we're going to use a variable in this is we want the girl to move forward towards the horse and stop. So we could send her a native girl, move forward, and then we'd have to basically use trial and error to figure out what the amount was. And then later on, if we move the girl and the horse further apart, we'd have to recalculate all over again. Variables allow us to save time in that we create a little space in memory, we give it a name, and it can store the value of how far apart these two objects are. And then we can just tell her to move forward that amount, the amount of the variable. And because variables can change, if we later move the girl and the horse a different distance apart, it'll be recalculated automatically by Alice. So what we're going to do is we're going to let Alice tell us how far apart they are by using the girl's functions. If you click on native girl in functions, you can see that you can ask proximity questions such as her distance in front of, which is what we want to know. We want to know what is the distance in front of this girl to the horse. The reason we're not doing just distance to, which is this option, is because that would measure from the center of the girl to the center of the horse. We want to know the actual space between the horse's nose and her nose, so to speak. So we want to find out the native girl's distance to the horse, distance in front of the horse, and then we are going to store that in a variable and later on use that variable to tell her to move that amount. So to create a variable, there's 3 steps. We're going to define a variable to store the distance between the girl and the horse. We're going to ask the girl how far she is from the horse and store her reply in the variable. And then we're going to use that variable in the move message to get her to move forward that amount. So with placing to selected, we're going to choose create new variable, and we'll call this distance to horse. Make sure when you create variables that they have very descriptive names so you know exactly what is being stored in them. You're going to be asked for 3 bits of information about a variable. What is its name? What type of data is it storing? Is it storing a number? In this case, yes, it's number of meters between the horse and the girl. Some variables are strings, that is phrases that you would type out. Some are Boolean, they're true or false values. In this case, we're using a number data type. So distance to horse, the type is number, and then finally the value. We are going to be setting the value in the code, so it's okay to just leave it as 1. Click OK. And you're going to get a new tile up on the top. If you look, let's see, actually they're not showing it. Generally, when you create a new method, you'll see no variables written right here, unless of course you've created a variable. This new variable tile says number beside it and has a 1, 2, 3. That's so you know what kind of data is stored in this variable. In this case, the number of meters. It gives you the name of the variable, distance to horse, and its initial value, in this case 1. All right, we're going to pull up a do in order because we're going to do 2 things. We're going to set the value of the variable by asking the girl how far she is from the horse, and then we are going to tell the girl to move that amount. So we'll pull up a do in order since there's more than 1 line of code. First thing we need to do is set the value of the variable. You do that by dragging the tile down into the code and selecting the top option, which is set value. We're just going to put a placeholder here of 1 because what we actually want the value to be is something we have to ask the girl, is the girl's functions, her distance to in front of the horse. So set a placeholder of distance to horse set value to 1, and then we'll click on the native girl and her functions to get the actual distance we want to put in there to be the value. So under native girl's functions, find distance in front of, drag and drop that on our placeholder of 1. And it's going to say distance in front of what? We're choosing the horse, the entire horse. So the full line of code will read distance to horse, set value of native girl, distance in front of horse. And so now whatever that number is, whether it's 5 meters or 7 meters, is stored in the variable named distance to horse. Now we can tell that girl to move that amount. So switch to the native girl's methods and drag over native girl move. The direction is going to be forward, and the amount is going to be found under a new option you'll see in the drop down called expressions. Expressions holds all the variables and different methods and functions you create. So choose expressions to see all the code you have created in Alice. And the only one available is distance to horse. So she's moving forward, the amount will be distance to horse meters. All right, we can test this now by going to my first method and switching to world so we can pull over placing to and hitting play. And the distance between them is calculated by that function. It is stored in the variable distance to horse. She moves forward that much. As you can see, it makes them really up close and personal. We don't want her actually in the horse's face when she moves forward, so we can tweak that amount that she's moving. Go back to placing to, and right now she's moving distance to horse meter. Click that drop down arrow and you'll see you have an option called math. That lets us manipulate this variable because it is a number data type, so we can subtract from that. So under math, choose distance to horse minus, which is the second option, and we're going to subtract half of a meter, 0.5. So now that second line of code reads native girl move forward distance to horse minus 0.5, and that would be in meters in Alice. So if she was 5 meters from the horse, she's now going to move forward 5 minus half a meter, so 4.5 meters. If you hit play to test this again, she stops just short of the horse, half a meter from his nose. And that's all you have to do for this exercise. Save the file as your last name, first initial, underscore, and then horse. Then upload that to Moodle.